My name is Rick Vitucci, and this is the Brian rig. I made this rig for the Casilla animation I recently put out. The character model that was used for it was made by Makar Maliki, a skilled character artist who has a really good eye for stylized characters. I follow him on Instagram, and he's also got a profile here on YouTube. I found this model on his Turbo Squid shop, and if you're interested in purchasing this model yourself, you can click on the link in the description to go find them. Like with every bipedal rig, I have all the necessary tools in place. I got IK and FK switches for both arms and legs. I have mouse controls. I have a control for the IK for both feet. I switch to them, so I can do this and just have them spin around like that. I also have a bit of a fusion of ribbon control in the FK too. So that way, whenever I want to do an action that may require me to flop from IK to FK, I can switch between the two and adjust the elbow in the FK to match the IK in the event that I can get most of that, in the event that I can get the arms lined up, but still not clean up that pop perfectly. That's what these guys are here to do. And they also can do cartoony bend movements too, which I did use for the animation, which I still was able to make use of in the animation. Also, what was interesting was this is the first model I ever rigged when I was already in A pose. So I thought it'd be a clever idea to kind of double up on his wrist and hand controls. So that way I can do all kinds of bending at the wrist without affecting the hand too much. Also, this allows me to kind of bend the hand into the wrist without causing too much strain on the geometry here. I also did an interesting trick I pulled on this model, was having the joints for his fingers closer to the knuckle. So that way, when they bend, the geometry looks like it's slipping into itself. However, I did this specifically to avoid having to deal with hook fingers, because I'm used to using rigs where I rotate the fingers, but the geometry kind of hooks around instead of folding into itself. If you take a look at your fingers and close them up without making a fist, you can see that the volume is kind of lost as the skin kind of folds into itself. I thought this effect was actually pretty cool and would help me avoid making the kind of weird cartoony hook fingers that I'm used to seeing on most rigs I've used at this point. And since this is kind of the same material, this won't really be a problem when rendering was to come down the pipeline. So this was a cool effect I think I'll be implementing on future rigs. Also got controls for his thumbs. I have those partial ribbon controls for his legs. So I can get all these toony, goofy shapes in there. And like with the arms, I can also control where the knee is when I have it on FK. When I do that's a split second, one frame control flip. So I also got a control on the bruised leg in case I need to pull it out and dislocate it for additional cartoony effects, squash and stretch, or just generally any kind of cartoony appeal. Just sprocket it right out of there. He's also got a handful of facial controls. I got controls for his eyebrows, for his nose, his cheek over here. I got controls for his jaw where I can rotate it around. I can pull it out and rotate it back in to give him a stronger jawline. Want to practice your Patrick Warburton impressions? Give him this jaw. There you go. Also got controls in his ears, so I can move the top of the earlobe around independent of the bottom half of the earlobe. If I ever want to have, his arm up here is doing like a little nervous gesture with his hand on his ear, I can move just that part of his ear, or move the whole thing all together in case he wants to move more of it. So I have a bigger control for the ear, so I can pull it out like that. I also got controls for his lips. I have another layer of control for just the 3 center lips. So I can do this. And if I want to finesse that, I can also skedaddle those around. Except for those, I also got bones here for his corners. Controls for the nose, for the overall nose over here, in case I want to made him being punched, like how I did in the casino animation. I can just move his nose around like so. Grab the nostril, flare it out, grab the center here, move that up here. Got that extra layer of control that I need to animate this guy's face in all kinds of goofy ways. Also got blend shapes here. Got these to control the animation for his eyelids. And I got these to finesse it, so that way I can pull the geometry for his face forward and get that bling going right. I also got controls here for the hair volumes atop his forehead. So I can rotate those around. You can really use these for any overlapping action. Have his head flop forward, and then he would have all his hair kind of fall up as he pulled right on back to normal, and then the hair would flap forward and back as appropriate. Also got control for this swath of hair on top of his scalp, and control from the front and move it like this. And I control the back end of it by moving this. Most of these controls affect the bones with a rotate and translate controls. So that way I can do all kinds of rotation or translation as stated with leg if I can dislocate them. Shoulder control, neck control. Here's where I got the IK and FK switches for the arms. I got blend shapes for vowels for how he opens his mouth without the bones. Bones really being there just for a little extra pepper and spice for if I want a specific shape when he's opening his mouth to do these vowels. I also got blend shapes for both sides of his head. I did this with my process of making blend shapes. I took the base geometry and I sculpted using mirrors transformed, or mirrors turned on, and pretty much I sculpted his face with my sculpting tools. That way I can get the proper expressions on both sides of his head. And then I went in, duplicated it out twice. That way, on one side I would be able to select half of it, undo all the transforms to that side of the face, and with the other one I would do the same thing, but with the left side of his face. So that way I would have blend shapes for both sides, for left side and right side. Again, for that extra level of control for his face. And speaking of extra level control, I set it so that way these blend shapes have no upper limit. I'm used to using rigs that have kind of that go from 0 to 1. And again, for the extra level of control, I have removed the upper limit so that I can surpass 1 and see how extreme I can get before dialing it back whenever exaggerating when animating. Also, I'm going to show the nodes for this one. Right here in the node editor, here is all the controls. Here's all connections going into this controller right here. What I'd like to call the blend shape onion. All the blend shapes are going out here into all the other controllers in the blend shape picker. There was a lot of stuff that went into this, and arranging all the blend shapes and getting them all connected to all these controls and assigning them to all these extra nodes to get the math going right. This was this helped me. This became a routine process for this, and this became really fun to do. We also got a scale lens. This was part for the ribbon controls for when IK is turned on. So I can do this. Again, when I do some cartoony stuff, get his arms to stretch. These nodes determine the amount of space going in between a point on the shoulder and a point on the wrist, and it tries to calculate a number to scale the bones that are being influenced by the ribbon controls by, and multiplying by that, so that way they are scaling them outward towards the IK handle. This was a cool trick to research on, and I plan to use it in a lot more of my rigs in the future. And other than those, here are the IK and FK switch controls here for the legs and the arms. This was a fun exercise in using the node editor, and I intend to be using a lot more in the future when making new rigs. And that's pretty much the Brian rig.